I'm going to be talking about Germany from the years 1356 through 1648. Some of the topics I will be discussing are the Golden Bull of 1356, the Reformation, including figures of Johannes Gutenberg, Martin Luther, and Charles V, the 30 Years' War, and the Beer Purity Law in 1516. Okay, so my first topic is the Golden Bull. So, in the time of the Holy Roman Empire, there were lots of nations under one rule, which meant a lot of conflict. When Emperor Charles IV was crowned, he decided to make a constitution to avoid future conflict, specifically pertaining to the election process of princes in Germany. There were constant disputes and wars regarding succession in the many different regions of Germany, and this decree was to avoid that. So the Golden Bull was the first actual structured law in the Roman Empire for the Germanic region. It stated essentially all the details that would be needed for peaceful royal elections for the German princes. For example, how they would be elected and how soon elections would need to take place. This gave the Germanic regions of the Romanic Empire their own autonomy and eliminated papal interference. How it pertains to Germany today. From what I understand, today's federal structure of Germany is based on the Golden Bull. Since the Golden Bull was so successful in avoiding conflict during succession, the many territories of Germany were able to strengthen themselves, which eventually led to today's many there's many states in Germany which are all very culturally unique, and they all have or many of them have different dialects and different customs, which is really cool. Okay, so moving on to the Reformation and eventually the 30 Years' War. So in 1439, a man named Johannes Gutenberg invented the movable printing press. This was huge in this time because a lot of people were illiterate because of lack of books, and in the time many books or transcripts would have been handwritten. So when Johannes made the printing press accessible to people, this revolutionized society because now people had more access to modern ideas and eventually the Bible. It did actually take a while before they kind of greased the wheel and got the printing press working for everyday people. But moving on, so without the printing press, Martin Luther's revolution would not have been possible. Martin Luther was born in He was born in 1483, and he was originally a priest that essentially went rogue in the Catholic Church. So at the time, only priests or really educated people could read the Bible because it was in Latin and Greek. And after Martin learned and read the Bible, he decided that all the rules and regulations of Catholicism didn't make sense to him. So in 1517, he wrote and printed his famous 95 Theses that heavily criticized the Catholic religion. He posted it on the door of a church in Wittenberg, and this was pretty much a slap in the face to the Roman Empire and the Catholic Church. The Roman Empire at the time, Charles V, demanded that Luther come to court and explain his views. Charles V asked him to recant them, and when he didn't, he became excommunicated from the Catholic Church and was an outlaw and considered a heretic to the Roman Empire. So it goes to say that Charles V was pretty pissed. Luckily, though, Martin Luther had some powerful German princes to protect him, so he was able to continue his Protestant venture. Okay, Luther eventually translated the Bible into German, which was a really big deal because it was more easily accessible to the everyday people, and they could decide for themselves what the Bible meant rather than listening to the Pope or the priests and following all their rules. His main criticism was that the church had no right to be in control of people's salvation. For example, he didn't see a reason why priests couldn't marry, and in fact ended up marrying a nun named Katharina von Bora. So Katharina von Bora was born in 1499 and was actually quite a bit younger than Martin himself. She actually played a really big role in the formation of the Protestant church. A lot of times people overlook her. Francie knows a lot about her. But yeah, she's a pretty big deal, pretty cool woman. But yeah, so after much conflict regarding the Catholic Church and new sects of Protestantism, yeah, I think, yeah, anyways, a peace treaty um, of Augsburg was signed in 1555, which allowed the princes in each state to choose which religion to conform to. However, this treaty was broken when Emperor Ferdinand ascended to head of the Roman Empire in 1619. He demanded that all the states and territories under the Roman Empire, which was a lot of land, conform to the Catholic religion. And since everyone had enjoyed a good 60 years of semi-religious freedom, a war broke out. And this is what is known as the 30 Years' War. And there are so many details to this war that I didn't really include all of them, but it was a lot of territories fighting, trying to win their religious freedom pretty much. It lasted from 1618 to 1648. Essentially, many territories revolted, started uprising, and after a lot of fighting and gaining and losing control of areas, an agreement was made that ended the 30 Years' War. So in 1648, this is a long video, guys. 1648, the many parties involved in the war signed a bunch of treaties known as the Peace of Westphalia. This led to even more autonomy for the German territories from the Roman Empire, which was a good thing, but it took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears for them to gain that. So, all that being said, with the formation of the Protestant church, religion was transformed in Germany then and for today, and we can see that today as well. So, in modern day Germany, Christianity is the largest religion in Germany, which stems from the Protestant church. The Protestant church today is more popular in northern and central Germany, where the Reformation originally took place. This also brought about the idea of freedom of religion, however limited at this time. Okay, so now to move on to more important things. My next topic is the beer purity law of 1516, so we're backtracking a little bit. In the Bavarian city Ingolstadt, a law was made that only barley, hops, and water could be used to brew beer. The original reason for this law was to prevent people from using crops that were supposed to be intended for making bread to make beer. I guess that was a problem at the time. But since it ended up being such a good recipe for beer, it stuck and was eventually adopted by other German states and became the norm throughout Germany on beer brewing. So eventually yeast was added into the mix after people realized its importance and how good it is, I guess, for making beer. But this technique for beer brewing is still used today in Germany and has been for the last 500 years. And as we know, beer is very important to the German culture today. There are actually over 5,000 kinds of German beer. So, a quote from the president of the German Brewers Federation: if Germany is still regarded as the undisputed beer nation, that is due to the purity law. And yeah, thank goodness for the purity law. And that concludes my presentation. Cheers, guys.